Your Steve Jones Show podcast is loading now. The Steve Jones Show podcast is sponsored by Sunbury Motors, North 4th Street in Sunbury, and Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf. Sports talk where your voice counts. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. Now, from the Sunbury Motors studio, here's Steve Jones.
Today's show brought to you by Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury, Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf. You always want to deal with the best of the business, and that is Sunbury Motors. Great staff, great products, great service department. Our play-by-play call of the day. Wisconsin drops back to punt, and Anthony Lotti makes a big mistake.
Here is Anthony Lotti, an average of 40 yards per punt to punt it away. And he dropped it. Ball on the ground. Oregon. Brady Breeze has got it. Brady Breeze is going to score.
Brady Breeze scored 3 touchdowns this year for Oregon. He scored 1 on a pick six, 1 on a scoop and score, that play. It was a fumble recovery, and then that play, the scoop and score. 3 touchdowns scored by Brady Breeze this year.
It's like the triple crown of defensive touchdowns.
Exactly. Exactly. And that call was courtesy of the Oregon Radio Network with Jerry Allen and Mike Jorgensen. The Rose Bowl yesterday, which was won by 1 by Oregon 28-27. Before we get to Nate Bauer from Blue White Illustrated, I'm amazed at what we're seeing right now in terms of how things are covered. A major determining factor in almost every game I do, football, basketball, are turnovers. You turn the ball over 17, 18 times at a basketball game, you're headed for a loss. Mm-hmm. You are minus giveaway, takeaway in a game, you lose. This year, I heard, well, gee, they dominated the game, but they didn't win. Well, I don't care if Wisconsin dominated the game statistically. That doesn't mean anything. They lost. You want to know why they lost? They turned the ball over 4 times. Sorry, but you're not going to win games turning it over 4 times. Penn State beat Memphis. Again, Penn State won giveaway, takeaway. And by the way, one quick note for the national media. Final score, Penn State 28, Michigan 21. All right, so for whatever reason, was Michigan's record 9.5 and 3.5? I don't quite get it. Okay? Here's one for you. Did not score more points. Didn't win. In fact, never had the ball with a chance to win.
Right. Absolutely.
Okay, we're done. Jack and I actually spent 2 minutes on the pregame show Saturday talking about this. How it's become, the coverage of that game, post-mortem, has been absurd. And that's why I was talking about Michigan earlier. Nebraska, I'm going to get more into this the last half hour. Scott Frost has said nothing. 0. Right, so this has nothing to do with Scott Frost. He gets it. Nebraska is a 5-year process to get back to prominence. Remember, in the offseason, this past offseason, Nebraska, they could win the division. I'm sitting here saying, I said in the show, I don't get what they're seeing. I don't get it. I said, this program's got a long way to go.
Well, yeah.
We say that. No. People are saying that now. In the offseason last summer, Nebraska, they're the team to watch. I'm thinking, watch what? They're very good.
Watch them flounder.
Well, there's nothing to do with watching them flounder because I think Scott Frost is the right choice, and I think he gets it's a 5-year process. Same thing with, for example, to appoint Notre Dame and to appoint Michigan. You cannot will a program back to being elite. Yeah, it takes more than willing them to get there.
Well, and it's not like the NFL or any pro league where you can just sign somebody and it's going to be all right.
Right.
It doesn't work that way.
Right.
College is different.
It's not like you can make that big signing that swings the entire division, but like Dylan Betances. All right, so
yeah, exactly. Hey, watch out.
Guy, I'm going to talk more about that in the last half hour. With that, we bring in Nate Fowler, Blue White Illustrated. Nate, Happy New Year. Welcome. KJ Hamler and Yetur Gross-Matos going, but Tariq Castro-Fields says he's going to stay.
It's interesting. I think that there are more guys returning than I anticipated. I think that if you kind of parse James Franklin's comments on signing day, that maybe there are more guys returning than they anticipated.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly we knew that there would be some guys with some options. In the past, I think that the Penn State has had maybe some borderline third, fourth, fifth round kind of guys that have opted to forego, the final years of their eligibility, and it's not happening this year. And the theme, the commonality that you see with a lot of these guys who have chosen to return is, this quote unquote unfinished business. It's I don't know that they're speaking it quite into existence yet. Some guys are more blunt about it than others, but this is a team that's gearing up for a playoff run. They believe it. They are determined to make it happen, and they think collectively that they have the pieces in place to get there. And so let's not get carried out, away and say that Tariq was a first rounder who, gave that up so that he could, pursue a national championship. But certainly these were guys, Mike Mennett, right? These were some players who had options. They weren't necessarily day one or day two guys, but certainly, you could see them getting drafted on day three, who have chosen to put that off for a year. So it's interesting. There a lot of pieces are lining up now. Obviously, Hamler not being part of that equation, and Yetur, those are game wreckers, right? Those are those are the guys that differentiate you in close games. And so to not have them, Penn State has a pretty tall task ahead of it to find people with their respective positions who are going to have the same type of impact. But, certainly you got to look at the collective and the whole and see a lot of talent and veteran talent returning for next year.
And considering that this was the opening question I had to James in the pregame show. I said, outside noise is a part of the game of college football. Outside noise in the summer told everyone with 5 guys going early to the NFL a year ago, Trace McSorley finishing his career, that Penn State football was headed toward a transition year. Yep. What does it tell everybody about the stability of the program, the depth of the program, and the player development of the program, that a transition year was 11-2?
Yeah, no doubt about it. It's interesting because you never want to take away from a Trace McSorley, a Miles Sanders, and Miles is probably a little bit different, but Ryan Bates, Connor McGovern, right? These are kind of names who, Sharif Miller, like Penn State. Penn State's ascent to this level were built on, in a lot of ways, those names, performances.
Right.
But the catch here is that for all that Penn State has lost over the last year, and may lose this year, it's a game of, especially in college athletics, you're always looking at what you're losing and not at what you're getting with another year of development. You just, it never clicks that, yes, that's the cycle. That's what happens is players grow up, they proceed through their eligibility, and then they exhaust it, or they pursue the next level. But the reality is that Trace McSorley should be, I don't want this to sound as bad as I think it's going to sound, Trace McSorley should be the bottom of Penn State's aspirations of the baseline talent that you want at quarterback moving forward, right? He should be. You should want to have at least a Trace McSorley moving forward every year, because he was great and he fulfilled his role perfectly, and he brought a lot of intangibles that you can only hope to continue to get out of your next players. But in terms of talent and ability and all of those measurables, you want to get at least a Trace McSorley moving forward every year,
right.
and the same carries throughout the lineup. And so what's happened is Penn State has those guys and more coming down the pipeline effectively. And so, yes, they have gotten to a point as a program where when you talk about this year being a step back, I'm not sure that I saw the Big Ten play out the way that necessarily we all thought it would.
Right.
But Penn State's performance in terms of learning how to win and being a team that knows how to win, no doubt they're a year ahead of schedule, and they've got more and more talent that's coming up from those second and third string guys who maybe needed a year to marinate, to become what everybody expects them to be next year.
Kirk Sherrocka obviously did a fabulous job, especially in Minnesota. He takes over as the offensive coordinator. Plus, there'll be a new offensive line coach with Matt Linegrover not being renewed. Your thoughts on the staff?
Yeah, I'm interested to see if that's it. I'm interested to see if anybody else might move on from the staff before this is all said and done. Certainly, the way that James likes to handle things, I think that he prefers to have the next landing spot in place before anybody leaves. If there is, that type of a dismissal, I don't want to call it firing, but certainly, it'll be interesting to see over the next couple of weeks how that plays out. But yeah, Kirk, certainly you saw the way that Minnesota maximized its talent this past season. And if Penn State has those pieces and more, moving forward, you would think that he would be just as effective, if not more effective, utilizing those pieces. The big caveat to that is, does Penn State have receivers who can match what Minnesota brought to the table?
Mm-hmm.
It's what I see happen over and over again is people kind of look at the name Minnesota and maybe on the whole as a program, they don't have the same talent level that Penn State does. But those skill position players are every bit as good as what Penn State has, if not better.
I think Gus Malzahn would agree with that today.
Yeah, no doubt about it. He saw for himself. Those guys make plays. Those guys, they are highly effective.
Yep.
And I haven't. Not to say that Penn State doesn't have that waiting in the wings, but we haven't seen it yet. We haven't seen it yet outside of Hamler and Freiermuth, and obviously once you lose Hamler, that's a blank slate at receiver for Penn State moving forward.
One of the really cool things about all this is that now the transition is made to basketball. And in the transition now to basketball being a focal point, because you cover that. You don't cover wrestling and ice hockey. Others do.
Yeah.
Now you're covering a team that's ranked 21. They got number 23 Iowa coming at the Palestra on Saturday.
Yeah.
what has allowed this team to put itself in the position they are in, where right now they're 15 in the net, making the turn into 2020?
They won the games that were toss-ups before the start of the season. I mean, and I think that you would agree with this, that they're not home, right?
Oh, no. This is a marathon. This is a journey, but at least they start this next part of the journey in a position instead of trying to fight back.
Absolutely, and that has the way that you just phrased that is exactly right. They are constantly behind the eight ball through the non-conference, and as we've seen over these last couple of years, the 2-game set of Big Ten games. That's just been a consistent theme, is that they've got to climb back. Well, this year they don't have to do that. They just got to go even, right? I mean, you got to win half your games from here on out.
Yep.
If you do that, you're going to the tournament. I mean, it's that part is clear, but certainly they want more than that, and this team is capable of doing more than that. And the reality, especially in the Big Ten and the way that they scheduled this year, everybody can beat everybody.
Yes.
You know that the top 2 teams, right? So Ohio State, Michigan State, they're really good. And maybe you're not going to compete with them at the level that you want. But this works in both ways. From 3 to 10 or 11, you're going to get a heck of a game every single night. And so you better, you got to win those games. You got to win half of them. And then for the bottom, for 11 to 14, you have to win those games, home and away. You have to win those games. And so, I mean, it's going to be very interesting to see, how they kind of proceed from here, because these next few games really offer, an excellent opportunity for them to get off to an even better start than they've already gotten off to. But none of them are givens, right? I mean,
there are no gimmies in this part. The Big Ten is deep.
Yep, no doubt. At Rutgers is real.
They're a good team.
With Wisconsin at home, you're just dealing with and certainly even Iowa, who has had its share of injury setbacks. Look, they're going to compete. They're, Franny is not packing up and taking his ball home.
No, right? Garza, Wieskamp. I mean, they got some players. I mean, it's. One final question, and this is not a smart aleck question. I just want you to preface it. It's a serious question for you. What was it like for you to sit home, watch a team that you cover in person all the time, and have to watch it on TV as opposed to not being there? And I mean that in all seriousness. That was not meant to be a smart aleck question in any way.
So not at all. And here's the thing. Like Willis Reed.
Oh no! Here it goes. Out of the locker room, score your 4 points and leave.
I was there, Steve. It was a whole to-do, but my flight on Thursday to get down there to Dallas I canceled it. I was like, no way, right? I went to a doctor. The doctor, and all of the horror stories that I had heard, effectively the doctor just said, you're no more contagious than somebody with a cold. If you need to be there, you should go. And my symptoms were not so bad that I felt like I couldn't go. And so I actually ended up being there for the game on Saturday. I got there late Friday night, and I made it happen because, to your question, I couldn't imagine that. I couldn't not be there. I mean, it was. This is the profession that I've chosen, and it felt it felt like I needed to be there, and so I got myself together and put some gloves on so that people didn't think I was a complete freak. And yeah, I pushed through it. But
I give you credit.
It's one of those things where you don't want to impact anybody else, and so the whole goal is to just exclude yourself as much as possible, so that other people aren't exposed to it. And
you're going to Philadelphia Saturday?
I will be there on Saturday. It's over though, Steve. You can shake my hand. I promise. It's totally fine.
Just for the moment, I might just wave.
Okay, and that's fine. I mean, better to be safe than sorry.
Got a life, got a career, man. All right, Nate. Happy New Year. I hope you are feeling a lot better. So
you too. Thank you. I very much appreciate that. It was weird, but I'm glad it's over.
That is weird. We're glad it's over.
Yeah.
Don't forget, certain golf courses have simulators to work on your game.
Yeah. Well, it's okay to put the clubs away for a couple of months. I'll be back. March. It's going to be here before you know it.
I plan on being busy in March. All right. So.
Excellent point. Excellent point. It'll be a different. This could be a very different spring for us.
Yes, it could be.
We'll see.
Nate, thanks so much. Happy New Year.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Nate Bauer, Blue Ed Illustrated. Final half hour coming up. Looking forward to that. Today's show brought to you by Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors, Kia Routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf on News Radio 1070 WKOK. When it comes to car buying, there's the other guy's way, and then there's the SMC way. The other guys force you into a vehicle you really don't want. The Sunbury Motors way lets you take the time you need to browse, ask questions, and take the test drive and think on it. For over 100 years, the Mertz family and all their employees have made your experience the most pleasant one you'll ever have. The other guys won't offer you the best price for your trade, no matter how much they say they will. The SMC way is their promise to provide you with the most money the market shows your vehicle is worth. The SMC way is to offer you all applicable factory rebates on new vehicles and generous discounts. Looking for a pre-owned vehicle? The SMC way checks each vehicle in a 200-mile radius to determine the lowest price, then beat it. It's the lowest price promise, just part of the SMC way. The choice is up to you. The other guy's way or the SMC way. The SMC way wins every time. Sunbury Motors Company in the North 4th Street Auto Plaza, Sunbury, and at sunburymotors.com. Selling more cars and satisfying more customers for over 100 years.
Taking your calls at 800-795-9565. This is The Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. Now, from the Sunbury Motors Studio, here's Steve Jones.
Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors, Kia Routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf. Cincinnati and Boston College are still delayed, I believe. Yeah. Lightning delay in Birmingham. It is the second consecutive year Boston College has had to endure a lightning delay in a bowl game.
That's shocking to me. It's just shocking. No pun intended. None. But that's like, I don't know, man. Like, talk about being born under a bad sign. It's almost like being a Jets fan.
It's unreal. I mean, same team 2 years in a row.
That is crazy.
Are you kidding me? But they're waiting.
Of course. Because, Boston College is begging at this point. Please let us get one in.
We'd like to at least play a game. I mean, the bowl swag was nice, but, I'd like to play it.
Now, how bad do you feel if you're Boston College if you get absolutely eviscerated in this game? Like 42-0.
Well, right now they just want to play. It's unbelievable. Just waiting. Wow. So, yesterday, of course, Wisconsin lost because they turned the ball over 4 times. Again, I've never seen a year. The coverage of the games that we watch has become really odd in some ways, where we spend so much time talking about the game on the 13th of the month, we don't concentrate on the game of the 1st of the month. What do you guys think about how Clemson and LSU are going to play? Okay, I don't care. I actually tuned into this game. Huh? I actually wanted to watch this game. I want to start out with, for example, how Michigan's lost to Penn State. Well, Michigan, well, look how they came back. Came back what? They lost. Okay, next. Again, looked to win a big game on the road. Couldn't do it. Couldn't do it. And that has been the Michigan MO here for a while. Their inability to win significant games.
Well, I think maybe the whole reason that type of thing happens is to try and build a story and some drama where there isn't any. It's almost like I remember leading up to the Michigan-Ohio State game, and I think we all knew that Ohio State was going to pound Michigan. Like I had no doubt. I had no doubt that Ohio State was going to blow Michigan out when it was all said and done, and that it would be interesting for a few minutes, and then they would blow them out. But at the end of the day, leading up to it, the coverage was, well, Michigan, ever since the second half against Penn State, they've been tremendous. They beat the crap out of Notre Dame. Okay, that was at home. But, that's the thing. I think that's the coverage.
That was a good win. That was a good win.
But I think that's the coverage answer. They're trying to build drama where there isn't any.
Right, and you just can't do that. That's disingenuous.
Yes, I agree.
All right, and I'm sick of disingenuous for the sake of hype. Just tell me what's going on. Everybody's smart enough. I mean, everybody's smart enough.
I'm not sure. I think maybe you're giving people in general too much credit. I
think the people that really follow it are smart enough.
Of course, the people who really follow it, yes. Agreed.
Okay. But it's like Jack and I were talking about before the game. Like, the two of us are just mystified. Okay? Penn State, for the most part, had a 2-score lead in that game.
Mm-hmm.
When you have a 2-score lead in that game, guess what? The other team doesn't have the ball with a chance to take the lead.
Right.
Voila. Okay. That's how you win and how the other guy loses. Michigan lost. And that's not atypical of what's happened. And it's also what's interesting about yesterday with Michigan-Alabama. Felt going in Alabama, despite the fact they had to go with their backup quarterback. And he's got an interesting decision to make. Mac Jones, I believe, either has his degree or is about to get his degree. If he wants to be a grad transfer, he can play someplace else. If Tua, it depends. Because Tua's injury is such, I don't know if he can play this upcoming season or not. And they are bringing in another hotshot recruit. Okay. To play quarterback. Okay. But Jones has played well enough.
He had a great game yesterday.
Right, he played
16 for 27, 16 for 25, 327, 3 touchdowns. That's a great game.
Yeah, he played really, really well. Now, is he a great next level quarterback?
Probably not.
No. But does he have great next level receivers? Oh my goodness, they're all over the place on that team.
Absolutely.
Very impressive. But what happened with Michigan was what happened with Memphis against Penn State. What was Memphis's problem? Well, the fact that Penn State's better, has more talent across the board, but Memphis kept settling for field goals. Every once in a while, you'll run into a game like Penn State's Citrus Bowl game with LSU in 2009, where the field wasn't in great shape. It was raining a bit. Penn State kicked 4 field goals, won the game 19-17. You can win games that are relatively low to medium scoring with multiple field goals. But once the game gets to the point where one team's over 25, you're not going to win the game kicking 6 field goals. Right? And that's what happened yesterday in the first half. Michigan, now got a touchdown and then settled for a field goal. Then the other one at the end, the 57-yarder by Quinn Nordin, was very impressive. Okay, that, at the end of the half, whatever point you get, you get. But that's it. Michigan scored 1 touchdown yesterday. 1.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's like in the Cotton Bowl. Memphis only scored 3 touchdowns. Penn State scored 7. 7 touchdowns. You're going to win games with 7 touchdowns.
And when you take into consideration that Michigan put themselves, they could have won if they would have turned one of those field goals into a touchdown. It was 16-14 at the half.
Right.
So it was like, and then Alabama just stepped on their neck in the second half. But if they would have turned one of those into a touchdown, It could have been at least
right. But
something.
See, again, you've got to be good enough to finish. See, that's my point. You've got to be good enough to finish. And now, getting something out of a drive is great. But when you get into a high-stakes game like that, you need more than just that. You need touchdowns. Michigan is an interesting program. And I think Notre Dame is in the same boat. 2 really, really, really good programs that can be dangerous on any given Saturday can be dangerous. Okay? So really, really good can be dangerous on any given Saturday. But neither one of them at the moment is a great program. I feel like what Brian Kelly has done at Notre Dame is the same thing that Jim Harbaugh has done at Michigan. They have each has stabilized their respective programs. They've stabilized them. And they deserve a lot of credit for stabilizing the situations. But they have not been able to get that leap into the great level where they're consistently great. Right now, they're both consistently really, really good.
And do you think that's a recruiting issue? Do you think that's a coaching issue? Like, at what point? Like, what is missing?
Okay, for Notre Dame, what's missing is that the perception of my generation of what Notre Dame is and what the reality of Notre Dame is now are 2 different things.
Right.
Notre Dame back when I was growing up was it's Notre Dame, it's the Fighting Irish, it's Heisman Trophy winners, it's Ara Parseghian, it's national championships, it's 4 horsemen, whatever. Okay? That doesn't cut bait with players now.
Well, because they don't even know that anymore.
Exactly. They don't know that.
You say Lou Holtz to a kid today, and they're like, what?
Yeah, he was on TV with Mark May, right?
Okay. Barely. They probably don't even remember that. It's been a while.
Right. Now, Brian Kelly has stabilized that, and they did get to the playoff last year, but they were non-competitive against Clemson.
And they were in a national championship game not too long ago either, and they got their lunch handed to them.
And they were non-competitive in that.
Yeah, Alabama definitely embarrassed them.
And each time it was really metrics that got them there, not so much maybe schedule, but metrics.
Sure.
Okay? But they got there. So let's give credit where credit. That's part of Brian Kelly. When you're a really, really good program, you can have a year like that. Okay? But you're going to mostly have good years. A lot of 9-win seasons, maybe in a case. I think let's say Notre Dame, they've had back-to-back 11s, I think.
They won 12 last year, 11 this year, 10 the year before.
Right. So it's a good run. But that's part of being a really, really good program. Now, Michigan, Harbaugh has done a great job of stabilizing Michigan. Done a great job. He's recruited well. But I'll tell you the area where he has not recruited well. And this has been a crusher for him, and I think it's been the same problem for Brian Kelly at Notre Dame. They haven't recruited a major league quarterback. And Jake Rudock, I think, is the best quarterback that Jim Harbaugh has had.
Well, I mean, this Shea Patterson was highly touted all year. Every game I watched, it was like, and this Shea Patterson, and then I'm underwhelmed every time.
I mean, Jake Rudock, to me, is the best quarterback Michigan's had since Harbaugh's been there. And he was a grad transfer from Iowa the first year. All right? And Rudock has done enough to keep himself on rosters and practice squads and so forth in the NFL. And I thought he essentially saved the first season for Michigan, the way he played. But they haven't recruited or developed a quarterback on their own at Michigan. And he's supposed to have been, quote, the quarterback whisperer. Brian Kelly runs through quarterbacks and is very critical of quarterbacks to the point where I'm not so sure they can function. You've got, it's interesting when you look at the history of the programs. Michigan has won more games than anybody. They've won 900, whatever the number is, 950, 60, whatever it is.
It's a lot.
Penn State will join the 900-win club in September of this year. They have 898 right now. And they'll be the 8th program to ever do it. And probably, as the season goes, has an opportunity, and things go right, to pass Nebraska for 7th all-time in wins. But Nebraska, Notre Dame, and Michigan are perfect examples of, in the hype of college football, you cannot will programs back to absolute prominence. And I'm talking about the media. You can't do it. People aren't buying it. They can see it for themselves. Michigan is a really, really good program, but they are not a great program. In the last 15 years, you know what the single most important game of the Big Ten has been? Most times in the Big Ten in the last 15 years? It hasn't been Ohio State, Michigan. It's been Penn State, Ohio State. That's been the most important game in the Big Ten for the most part. Not all the time, but for the most part in the Big Ten, that's been the biggest game in the conference every year.
Yeah, for at least the past, like 2 or 3 years for sure.
I'm going back to 2005.
Oh, wow.
I mean, Penn State beat Ohio State in 2005. Won the Big Ten, went to the Orange Bowl. Penn State beat Ohio State in 2008 at Ohio State, went to the Rose Bowl. Penn State beat them in 2011. Penn State then, of course, they come out of sanctions, and guess what? Even in sanctions, Ohio State needed double overtime and 14 to win. Double overtime. Then in 16, Penn State won. Then in 17, Ohio State rallied and won by 1. Mm-hmm. And then in 18, Ohio State rallied and won by 1. And this year, Ohio State, to its credit, played really well and won. But it's been the most important game in the Big Ten for not all, but most of the last 15 years. Not Ohio State, Michigan. And that's the part that is that's the part. It's hard for the Big Ten to let go of it because, look, and I don't blame them for I don't blame them for promoting it at all. But I will point this out. Ohio State, Michigan, when TV was really, really doing a great job with a game a week of promoting the college game, that Ohio State-Michigan game at the end of the year became a nationally televised game you had to see, especially when Bo Schembechler took over at Michigan. Ohio State's the defending national champion. Ohio State's ranked number 1, and Michigan upset them. That set the tone for the 10-year war, where now ABC felt, hey, we've got to show this game every year. Look at the intensity of this game. And it was a very intense game.
Right.
So that did so much to enhance. Remember, this is 1969, 50 years ago. This did a lot to enhance the national profile of Big Ten football. You got to watch Ohio State, Michigan. Absolutely. I watched it all the time. But then there's the other part. And it's the part that nobody in the Big Ten ever wants to talk about with the 10-year war. There was an additional game after that, which then hurt the profile of the Big Ten. And that was the Rose Bowl. The winner of that game went to the Rose Bowl. Well, guess what the record was for Michigan and Ohio State during the 10-year war in the Rose Bowl? 2-8.
Yikes.
That's the part where, like, nobody's ever talked about that.
Yeah,
and Michigan's history, which is illustrious, it's illustrious. It really, But in the history of Michigan football, you know how many 11-win seasons they have? 8. Total. 8. That includes 4 in the 1900s. 8. Penn State's had 6 since 2005.
Yeah, they have, Michigan has 1, 2, only 2 since 2000, and then, not a lot. Not a lot of 11-win seasons.
Penn State had 6.
There's a 12-0, which was back in 97.
Yeah, they shared a national championship that year, right? Penn State has, just since 5, won 11 games or better in 5, 8, 9, 16, 17, 19.
And they play virtually the same schedule.
Yeah, they've got 6. Okay, Joe Paterno had 15 11-win seasons.
Yep.
15. James has 3. That's 18 since 1966. Michigan has 4.
You know, there's just some things just get more publicity.
Again, Michigan is really, really good. Please don't get me wrong about this. Michigan's really, really good. Notre Dame's really, really good. But are they in that category of being a top 10 team? Right now, Ohio State is in that elite category. Let's give them credit. Penn State is in the great category. What James has done the last 4 years, the New Year's 6 bowls, they've won 2 of them. Michigan doesn't have any. It does, and again, the head-to-head thing, the matchup thing, yeah, they've split the last 4, and it's been crazy to see it because I've watched the first game. But Penn State's the program right now that's playing like and makes you feel like as the future goes, going to be the great program. Penn State's great. Penn State's great now, and I think they're going to get even better.
I mean, is it possible that a lot of the reason why Michigan would get all this hoopla and coverage, or Notre Dame, is that it's still a generational thing, and when a younger generation finally takes over, the publicity side of it, the ESPN and all of that, like people are still like, whenever Notre Dame even gets a blip of being good, it's like everybody loses their mind and they want to immediately put them in a conversation of a championship contender.
Sure, sure.
And you can watch them on the field and they can't compete with these teams.
I agree with you. But you know what's interesting? Penn State went head-to-head with Notre Dame on Saturday on TV. Penn State played in the Cotton Bowl against Memphis. Notre Dame, exact same start time, played in the Camping World Bowl against Iowa State. TV ratings came out. Notre Dame drew 4.17 million viewers. Pretty good.
Yeah.
Penn State drew 6.22 million.
What networks were they on?
Notre Dame was on ABC.
Wow. Yeah.
Penn State was on
ESPN.
ESPN was on cable.
Yeah.
And on cable, Penn State outdrew over the air. 2 out of 3 people were watching Penn State.
I mean, I think there might be something to the fact that that Penn State was playing against Memphis, whereas Notre Dame was playing Iowa State.
Iowa State's a better program
than Memphis. Iowa State wasn't even ranked this year.
It doesn't matter. In terms of name recognition, Iowa State is a bigger name.
I don't know. If it was Iowa, then I would be a little more impressed. But yeah, I understand what you're saying.
It's a Big 12 team against an American team.
Right. No, right? I understand what you're saying.
Essentially, it's Penn State against Notre Dame. It was Penn State against Notre Dame. That's what it came down to. Yeah. 2 out of 3 people chose to watch Penn State.
Yeah.
It tells you everything.
Sort of.
It tells you everything.
I guess it does. I just think the media gets so excited whenever a Michigan, especially when you have a coach like Harbaugh or a Notre Dame or someone like that becomes prominent.
Michigan draws TV ratings, no question. So they're going to hype it up more. They feel Notre Dame still does. But Notre Dame football on NBC does well, but not great. Notre Dame football on NBC gets beaten every single week. Every week. Notre Dame football on NBC is beaten. NBC did not win a single weekend of college football in a time slot this year.
That's a forever contract. They're never getting out of that.
No. I know they aren't. But, and it's good for NBC and it's good for Notre Dame. It's good for both. Okay? NBC needs a college football contract. That's it. But in terms of the ability to win the time slot, Notre Dame never wins the time slot when they're on NBC.
You think Notre Dame is still paying 1950s prices for that?
No, they're making 2020 money. All right. We will be back tomorrow here on News Radio 1070 WKOK.